Today we're going to explore something that touches every single one of us, something that paradoxically affects the kindest, most generous people among us most deeply. The question that brought us together isn't just about loneliness. It's about why good people, people with beautiful hearts and noble intentions, often find themselves walking a solitary path. I received a letter from a businessman who had everything society tells us we should want: the corner office, the beautiful home, the prestigious address. His words weren't about success or achievement. "I have everything I thought I wanted, but I've never felt more alone." Those words mirror truth. Many of us carry in our hearts but rarely speak aloud. How many of you have felt that way, like you're doing everything right, being the good person everyone expects you to be, yet somehow feeling disconnected from the very world you're trying so hard to serve? Loneliness isn't just about being physically alone. Sometimes we're most lonely in a crowded room, surrounded by people who see our smile but miss our pain. And here's the fascinating paradox. Often, the better person you are, the more likely you are to experience this profound sense of isolation. Let me share why this happens. Good people, like many of you here tonight, carry a special burden. You see the world not just as it is, but as it could be. You hold yourself to higher standards. You believe in kindness when the world seems cruel, in honesty when lies seem easier, in giving when others are taking, and that very goodness, that light you carry, can sometimes create a distance between you and others. You hesitate to burden others with your problems because you're usually the one people come to for support. You hold back from sharing your deepest thoughts because you don't want to seem ungrateful for the blessings in your life. You stay silent about your loneliness because somehow admitting to it feels like failing at being the strong, capable person everyone believes you to be. But here's what I want you to understand tonight. Your loneliness isn't a flaw in your character. It's often a byproduct of your depth. Think about the ocean for a moment. The surface is where most life visible to us exists, where boats sail and waves dance. But the real treasures, the profound mysteries lie in its depths. You, my friends, are like that ocean. Your capacity for deep thought, for meaningful connection, for authentic living makes you different. Not better, not worse, just different. Good people often choose loneliness unconsciously because they're unwilling to settle for superficial connections. You yearn for conversations that go beyond the weather and weekend plans. You long for relationships where you can be fully yourself, where you don't have to dim your light to make others comfortable. And let's be honest, in a world that often celebrates the superficial, that depth can feel like a burden. You might find yourself holding back in conversations, nodding along to small talk while your mind wrestles with deeper questions. You might feel out of place at gatherings where everyone seems content with surface-level interactions while you're silently craving meaningful connection. But here's where we need to shift our perspective. What if this loneliness you feel isn't a punishment but a calling? What if it's not about what's wrong with you but what's right with you? What if your loneliness is actually a sign that you're ready for a deeper level of connection, a more authentic way of living? I've spent years studying human behavior, and I've noticed something remarkable. The people who feel this kind of loneliness most acutely are often the ones with the greatest capacity for genuine connection. They're the ones who understand that real relationships aren't built on constant agreement, but on the courage to be vulnerable, to share our truths, to stand in our authenticity even when it's uncomfortable. Think about the times in your life when you felt truly connected to someone. I bet it wasn't when you were pretending to be someone you're not. It wasn't when you were saying what you thought they wanted to hear. It was when you dared to be real, when you allowed your true self to be seen. This is where many good people stumble. You've learned to be the strong one, the reliable one, the one who has it all together. You become so good at giving that you've forgotten how to receive. You become so accustomed to being the shoulder others cry on that you've forgotten how to share your own tears. But true connection, the kind that banishes loneliness, requires both giving and receiving. It requires the courage to be imperfect, to need help, to admit that sometimes being good doesn't mean being strong all the time. Sometimes being good means being real. I want you to understand something profound tonight. Your loneliness is not your enemy. It's a messenger trying to tell you something important about your life, about your needs, about the deeper connections you're ready for. When you feel that ache of isolation, It's not a sign that there's something wrong with you. It's a sign that you're awakening to your need for authentic connect. The good news is that this awakening is the first step toward transformation. Once you understand why you, as a good person, might choose loneliness, consciously or unconsciously, you can begin to make different choices. You can begin to create the deep, meaningful connections your soul craves. Consider this moment right now. In this room, there are others just like you, people who feel deeply, think profoundly, and love genuinely, people who sometimes feel like they're too much or not enough, people who understand exactly what it means to be good and lonely at the same time. Your loneliness isn't a dead end. It's a doorway to deeper self-understanding, to more authentic relationships, to a life where being good doesn't mean being alone. But to walk through that doorway, you first need to understand why you've been standing in front of it for so long. In the next part of our journey together, we're going to explore the specific patterns and beliefs that keep good people stuck in loneliness. We'll look at how your very virtues, your empathy, your integrity, your desire to help others might be contributing to your isolation. And most importantly, we'll discover how to maintain these beautiful qualities while creating the deep connections your heart desires. Remember, your goodness is not a barrier to connection. It's your pathway to the most meaningful relationships you could imagine. Your depth is not a flaw. It's your greatest gift. And your loneliness is not a punishment. It's an invitation to something greater than you've ever known. Stay with me as we continue this journey together, because what comes next might just transform how you see yourself, your loneliness, and your capacity for a connection forever. Now let's delve deeper into something that might surprise you. Good people often create their own loneliness through what I call the perfection paradox. You see, when you strive to be good, truly, deeply good, you create certain patterns in your life that, while noble in intention, can actually build walls between you and others. Let's explore these patterns together. The first is what I call the burden of brightness. You know what I mean? That feeling that you need to always be positive, always be strong, always be the light for others. A wonderful woman once told me during a seminar, I feel like I can never have a bad day because everyone counts on me to be their sunshine. How many of you can relate to that? This constant pressure to be the strong one, the wise one, the one who has it all figured out. But here's the truth. This burden of brightness, this need to always be the light, can cast the longest shadows in your own life. You become like a beautiful stained glass window, letting light through for everyone else while standing apart, separated by the very beauty you create. People see the light you shine, but rarely the glass that's bearing the weight. Then there's what I call the empathy trap. Your ability to feel deeply for others, to understand their pain, to want to help. It's one of your most beautiful qualities. But it can also be one of your most isolating, because when you're always the one holding space for others' pain, who holds space for yours, good people often become excellent listeners. You've mastered the art of asking the right questions, of making others feel heard and understood. But in doing so, you might have forgotten how to speak your own truth. You become so fluent in the language of giving that you've forgotten the dialect of receiving. Here's another pattern I've observed, the worthiness maze. Good people often tie their self-worth to their usefulness to others. You feel worthy when you're helping, giving, supporting. But what happens when you need help? What happens when you're the one who needs support? Many of you would rather walk through fire than admit you're struggling. I remember speaking with a teacher who dedicated her life to helping troubled students. She told me I can handle 30 teenagers' emotional crises in a day, but I can't bring myself to tell my closest friend that I'm feeling overwhelmed. That's the worthiness maze. Believing you're only valuable when you're giving, never when you're receiving. This brings us to the authenticity paradox. Good people often pride themselves on their honesty and integrity, yet, ironically, many of you hide your true selves behind a mask of perpetual okayness. You believe in authenticity, but only up to a point. You'll be real about everything except your own struggles, your own needs, your own loneliness. Let me share something powerful with you. Your vulnerability is not your weakness. It's your greatest strength. Your needs are not your flaws. They're your humanity. Your struggles are not your failures. They're your path to deeper connection. Think about the people you feel closest to in your life. Aren't they the ones who've shown you their own humanity? The ones who've trusted you with their imperfections? Yet how often do you deny others the chance to connect with you in the same way? This brings us to what I call the high standards hurdle. Good people often have crystal clear values and strong principles. That's beautiful. But sometimes these very standards can become barriers to connection. You might find yourself holding back from relationships because others don't meet your expectations for depth, authenticity, or emotional intelligence. You're like a master musician who can only hear the off-key notes in every performance. While this might make you excellent at what you do, it can also leave you sitting alone in an empty concert hall, waiting for the perfect symphony that may never come. Here's a truth that might be hard to hear. Sometimes your loneliness is not despite your goodness, but because of how you carry it. You've turned your goodness into a fortress when it should be a bridge. You've made your strengths into a wall when it should be a door. But there's hope in this understanding, because once you see these patterns, you can begin to change them. You can learn to be good without being perfect. You can learn to be strong without being invulnerable. You can learn to be giving while also receiving. The key lies in understanding that your goodness doesn't require you to be superhuman. In fact, your humanity, your needs, your struggles, your imperfections, these are the very things that make your goodness real and relatable rather than distant and intimidating. Consider this. When you hide your struggles, you're not just protecting yourself. You're denying others the chance to give, to connect, to show up for you the way you show up for them. You're denying them the opportunity to experience the joy of giving, the satisfaction of supporting someone they care about. Think about that for a moment. How often have you felt fulfilled by helping someone else? How often has supporting another person brought meaning to your life? When you refuse to let others in, when you insist on always being the strong one, you're actually denying them this same fulfillment. Your loneliness, in many ways, is a call to revolution. A revolution in how you view strengths, in how you practice goodness, in how you allow yourself to be seen and known by others. It's asking you to expand your definition of what it means to be good. Being good doesn't mean being perfect. Being strong doesn't mean never needing help. Being wise doesn't mean always having the answers. Being valuable doesn't mean always being useful. These are the truths that can set you free from self-imposed loneliness. As we move forward in our exploration, I want you to hold on to this thought. Your goodness deserves to be witnessed, not just expressed. Your strength deserves to be supported, not just demonstrated. Your heart deserves to be known, not just to know others. The path out of loneliness isn't about becoming less good. It's about becoming more real. It's about understanding that your goodness isn't a performance to be maintained, but a gift to be shared, including all the beautiful, messy, imperfect parts of being. In our next segment, we'll explore how to begin this transformation, how to maintain your values while creating space for genuine connection, and how to turn your goodness from a source of isolation into a fountain of authentic relationships. But for now, I want you to sit with this understanding. Your loneliness is not a failure of your goodness. It's an invitation to expand it. Now we're going to explore something transformative, the bridge between understanding your loneliness and actually changing it. This is where real transformation begins, where we turn insight into action. Good people often believe that their loneliness is a cross they must bear, a natural consequence of their depth and sensitivity. But I'm here to tell you that this isn't true. Your depth isn't meant to isolate you. It's meant to connect you to others in profound and meaningful ways. Let me share a profound truth. Loneliness isn't healed by changing who you are. It's healed by expressing who you are more fully. The very qualities that you think separate you from others, your sensitivity, your thoughtfulness, your depth, these are actually your greatest tools for connection. Think about water for a moment. When water meets an obstacle, it doesn't stop flowing. It finds new paths. It transforms, it adapts, but it never loses its essential nature. This is how we need to approach our goodness and our need for connection. The first step in this transformation is what I call sacred selfishness. Now, I can see some of you shifting uncomfortably at that phrase. Good people often react to the word selfish like it's a form of moral failure. But sacred selfishness isn't about becoming self-centered. It's about becoming self-aware. This means recognizing that taking care of your own need for connection isn't selfish. It's necessary. Just as you wouldn't expect a car to run without fuel, you can't continue being good to others if you're running on empty yourself. A remarkable soul once told me after a seminar, I spent my whole life being a lighthouse for others, never realizing that lighthouses need maintenance too. That's sacred selfishness. Understanding that maintaining your light isn't selfish. It's responsible. The second step is embracing what I call conscious vulnerability. This isn't about dumping your problems on others or becoming unnecessarily needy. It's about selective, intentional sharing of your authentic self, including your struggles and uncertainty. Start small. The next time someone asks how you are, pause before automatically saying, fine. Take a breath and share something real, even if it's as simple as I'm having a challenging day, but I'm working through it. Watch what happens. You'll be amazed at how many people respond to your authenticity. Remember this? Every time you choose authenticity over appearance, you're not just helping yourself. You're giving others permission to be real too. Your vulnerability becomes a gift to others who are also longing to be seen and understood. The third step is what I call reciprocal relationship building. Good people often excel at one-way relationships. They're great at giving, supporting, lifting others up. But real connection requires a two-way street. It requires you to learn the art of receiving. This means practicing phrases that might feel foreign at first. I could use some support. Would you have time to listen? I'm not sure what to do, and I value your perspective. These aren't signs of weakness. They're invitations to deeper connect. Think about the joy you feel when you can help someone you care about. When you deny others the chance to support you, you're actually denying them this same joy. You're denying them the opportunity to give back, to feel needed, to be significant in your life. The fourth step is boundary alchemy, the art of turning your limits into possibilities. Good people often struggle with boundaries because they see them as walls that push others away. But healthy boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges that allow for safer, more authentic connection. When you can say no to what drains you, you have more energy to say yes to what fills you. When you can be honest about your limits, you create space for real intimacy. Your boundaries don't protect you from connection, they protect your ability to keep. Here's a powerful truth. People don't connect with your perfection. They connect with your humanity. They don't connect with your endless strength. They connect with your authentic journey. They don't connect with your mask of okayness. The fifth step is what I call intentional presence. This means choosing to be fully present in your interactions rather than always being the observer, the helper, the fixer. It means allowing yourself to be seen, heard, and known, even when it feels vulnerable. Practice staying in conversations a little longer than comfortable. Share a little more than you usually would. Ask for help with something small, then something bigger. Each time you do this, you're building your connection muscles, strengthening your capacity for authentic relationship. Remember, the goal isn't to stop being good. It's to be good in a way that includes yourself. It's about expanding your circle of compassion to include your own heart. It's about understanding that your needs matter just as much as everyone else's. Your goodness is like a garden. Right now, you might be letting everyone pick flowers while you stand outside the gate. The transformation I'm talking about is about stepping into your own garden, tending to your own flowers, and inviting others to join you there. Not just to take, but to share in the beauty you create. As you begin this journey of transformation, be patient with yourself. Change doesn't happen overnight. You didn't develop these patterns of loneliness in a day, and you won't transform them in a day either. But each small step toward authentic connection, each moment of chosen vulnerability, each act of sacred selfishness, these are all steps toward the deep, meaningful connections your heart desires. In our next segment, we'll explore how to maintain these changes in the face of resistance, both from others and from within yourself. We'll look at how to handle the discomfort that comes with transformation and how to stay true to your path even when old patterns try to pull you back. But for now, I want you to hold on to this truth. Your goodness isn't meant to be a solitary light in the darkness. It's meant to be a flame that ignites connection, that draws others near, that creates warmth and light, for everyone, including yourself. Now we arrive at what might be the most challenging part of our journey together, maintaining these changes when the world pushes back. Because make no mistake, when you begin to transform your relationship with loneliness, you'll face resistance. This resistance comes in many forms, both from within and without. Let me share something profound. Transformation isn't just about learning new behaviors. It's about becoming comfortable with a new way of being. It's about standing firm in your truth, even when the old patterns try to reclaim you. First, let's address what I call the snapback effect. This is that powerful urge to return to your old patterns when things get uncomfortable. You might share something vulnerable with someone, feel exposed, and immediately want to retreat back into your fortress of strength and self-sufficiency. A spiritual teacher once told me, the universe will test your resolve to change by presenting you with situations that trigger your old patterns. How true this is. The moment you decide to be more authentic, life will present you with opportunities to hide. The moment you choose to receive support, situations will arise where it feels easier to handle everything alone. This is where what I call courageous consistency becomes crucial. This isn't about being perfect in your new patterns. It's about being persistent. When you slip back into old patterns, and you will, because you're human, your task isn't to berate yourself, but to gently return to your path of authentic connection. Think of it like learning to play a musical instrument. You don't expect to master it in a day. Each wrong note isn't a failure. It's part of the learning process. Similarly, each time you catch yourself retreating into loneliness is an opportunity to choose connection instead. Another challenge you'll face is what I call the resistance of roles. People in your life have grown accustomed to you being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who has it all together. When you begin to show your vulnerability, some might resist this change. Remember this, their resistance isn't about you. It's about their own discomfort with change. Some people might have invested heavily in seeing you as the perpetually strong one because it makes them feel safe. Your transformation might challenge their sense of security. This is where compassionate authenticity becomes essential. You can acknowledge others' discomfort while still holding true to your path. You might say, I understand this feels different, but sharing my truth allows me to be more present in our relationship. Here's a powerful truth. Every time you choose authentic connection over comfortable isolation, you're not just changing your own life. You're creating ripples of possibility for others. Your courage in facing loneliness becomes a light for others walking the same path. The third challenge you'll encounter is what I call the authenticity paradox. As you become more real, more vulnerable, more connected, you might actually feel more alone at first. This temporary increase in loneliness often happens because you're becoming more aware of your true needs for connection. Think of it like cleaning a cluttered room. Sometimes the room looks messier in the middle of the cleaning process than it did before you started. This doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're in the middle of necessary change. This is where trusting the process becomes crucial. Understanding that temporary discomfort is not only normal but necessary for real transformation. You're not just changing behaviors. You're rewiring patterns that might have been in place for years or even decades. Let me share something vital. The path from loneliness to connection isn't a straight line. It's more like a spiral where you might revisit old territories, but from a higher perspective each time. Each return to a challenging place carries new wisdom, new understanding, new strength. One of the most powerful tools in maintaining this transformation is what I call conscious companionship. This means deliberately seeking out and nurturing relationships with people who understand and support your journey. People who appreciate your depth, respect your growth, and honor your authentic self. These aren't necessarily the people who've been in your life the longest. They're the ones who resonate with your truth, who can hold space for both your strengths and your vulnerability, who understand that being good doesn't mean being perfect. Remember this, you're not changing who you are. You're becoming more of who you truly are. Your goodness isn't diminished by your need for connection. It's enhanced by it. Your strength isn't weakened by your vulnerability. It's made more real by it. As you continue this journey, there will be moments of doubt. Moments when the old loneliness feels safer than the risk of real connection. Moments when you question whether this path of transformation is worth the effort. In these moments, return to your truth. Your truth is this: you were not meant to walk alone. Your depth, your sensitivity, your goodness, these aren't barriers to connection. They're gateways to the most profound relationships possible. But these gateways only open when you're willing to be seen, to be known, to be real. Think of yourself as a bridge builder. Each time you choose authenticity over isolation, you're laying down another plank in the bridge between yourself and others. Each time you allow yourself to receive support, you're strengthening that bridge. Each time you share your truth, you're inviting others to cross that bridge and meet you in a place of real connection. The world needs your goodness, but it needs your whole self even more. It needs your light and your shadows, your strength and your vulnerability, your wisdom and your questions, because it's in this fullness of being that real connection happens. In our final segment, we'll explore how to take these insights and transformations into your daily life. We'll look at practical ways to maintain your journey toward authentic connection while staying true to your essential goodness. But for now, hold on to this truth. Your loneliness is not your destiny. It's simply been a chapter in your story. And you hold the pen that writes what comes next. As we reach the culmination of our journey together, let's focus on how to integrate everything we've explored into your daily life. Because transformation isn't just about understanding, it's about living these truths in each moment, each interaction, each choice. Your journey from here isn't about dramatic changes or grand gestures. It's about small, consistent choices that gradually reshape your relationship with yourself and others. Think of it as turning a large ship. It happens degree by degree, but each small adjustment changes your ultimate destination. First, let's talk about what I call daily authenticity practices. These are small moments where you can choose connection over isolation. When someone asks how you're doing, take a breath before answering. Give yourself permission to share something real, even if it's small. I'm finding my way through a challenging situation is more inviting of connection than I'm fine. Your goodness has likely made you an expert at asking others meaningful questions. Now it's time to turn that skill toward connection. Instead of only asking others about their lives, practice adding an I statements. That sounds challenging. And I've experienced something similar. This simple addition creates bridges of shared experience. Remember this profound truth? Every time you choose authenticity over appearances, you're not just changing your own life. You're creating permission for others to do the same. Your vulnerability becomes an invitation for others to step out of their own isolation. Let's explore what I call connection anchors. These are regular practices that keep you tethered to authentic relationship. Maybe it's a weekly coffee with a friend where you've both agreed to share honestly. Perhaps it's a monthly letter to yourself where you acknowledge your own journey. These anchors prevent you from drifting back into the sea of isolation. One of those powerful practices you can adopt is what I call gratitude for need. Instead of seeing your needs as burdens, practice thanking them for their wisdom. Your need for connection isn't a weakness. It's your heart's intelligence guiding you toward fuller life. Your loneliness isn't a flaw. It's your soul's compass pointing toward deeper truth. Think of yourself as a gardener of connection. Some relationships will be like wildflowers. They spring up naturally and require little tending. Others will be like rare orchids. They need specific conditions and careful attention to thrive. Both have their place in your garden of relationships. Your task isn't to force every relationship into deep intimacy. It's to create space for authentic connection at whatever level is natural and true. Some people will meet you in the depths. Others will share lighter moments of connection. All of these contribute to a life-rich and genuine relationship. This brings us to what I call the wisdom of discernment. Not everyone is ready for or interested in deep connection, and that's okay. Your journey isn't about converting others to your way of being. It's about finding and nurturing relationships where authentic connection can flourish. Remember this, you can be selective about where you invest your relational energy while still maintaining your kindness toward all. Being discerning about deep connection doesn't mean withdrawing your goodness from the world. As you move forward, carry with you what I call the paradox of presence. The more fully you show up in your own life, with all your strength and vulnerability, your wisdom and uncertainty, your light and shadow, the more you invite others to do the same. Your transformation isn't just personal. It's part of a larger awakening. Each person who moves from isolation to authentic connection creates ripples that touch countless others. Your journey toward genuine relationship becomes a light for others walking similar paths. Let's talk about what I call sustainable connection. This isn't about maintaining intense emotional intimacy at all times. It's about creating rhythms of connection that can be maintained over time. Sometimes it's deep sharing. Sometimes it's comfortable silence. Sometimes it's simple presence. Think of your capacity for connection like a muscle. It grows stronger with use, but it also needs rest and recovery. There will be times when you need solitude, and that's different from loneliness. Chosen solitude replenishes. Isolation depletes. As you continue this journey, remember that progress isn't linear. There will be days when old patterns resurface, when loneliness feels familiar and safe. In these moments, treat yourself with the same compassion you'd offer others. Return gently to your path of authentic connection. You are not meant to be a lighthouse keeper, alone with your light. You are meant to be a light weaver, connecting your radiance with others, creating constellations of authentic relationship that illuminate the world. Your goodness isn't a burden to bear alone. It's a gift to be shared in relationship. Your depth isn't a wall between you and others. It's an invitation to profound connection. Your sensitivity isn't a weakness. It's your greatest strength in creating genuine bonds. As we conclude our time together, I want you to hold this truth in your heart. Your loneliness has been a teacher showing you the way toward deeper authenticity and connection. But it needn't be your constant companion any longer. You have everything you need to create the authentic connections your heart desires. Your goodness, your depth, your sensitivity, these aren't obstacles to overcome, but gifts to share. The world needs your light, not just as a distant beacon, but as a warm flame that others can gather around, where real connection can flourish. Go forward knowing that each step toward authentic connection, no matter how small, is a step toward the life you're meant to live. Your journey from loneliness to connection isn't just about ending isolation. It's about beginning a new chapter of genuine, sustainable relationship with yourself and others. And remember, in those moments when the old loneliness tries to reclaim you, you're not alone. There are others walking this path, choosing authenticity over isolation, choosing real connection over comfortable distance. Your courage in this journey lights the way for others, just as their courage lights the way for you. Your goodness has always been your strengths. Now let it be your bridge to the deep. Meaningful connections your heart has always known were possible. The time for loneliness is past. The time for authentic connection has come. And you are ready.